Geocachomaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
I am Daryl W4 with the Bad Cop and a couple of guests to talk about geocaching solo on this, the 197th edition of the GeoGearHeads. After more than 200 installments, because we had some special episodes dropped in there as well, and that actually makes this the 101st episode in the feed.
201st.
201st, sorry. And a bunch of patron shows as well. Yeah. So because of that, I think most of you probably know who the Bad Cop on Air are by now. But Bad Cop, one of the fellow GeoGearheads, summed it all up pretty well.
Daryl, I want to say, though, we keep changing. We're evolving in our personality, so you may not know who we are. But Subway Mark recently wrote in his iTunes review, "This podcast is all about geolocation gaming and gadgets. Daryl W4 and the Bad Cop work well together with your guest. Show schedule is planned out months in advance, so there are bound to have topics of unique interest to everyone." Well, Mark, thank you for that iTunes review, and we'll be sure to be keeping more great topics coming your way.
Well, one quick reminder for our patrons before we get into the show. This Tuesday is the October Patron Hangout. There's a few new patrons, and some of you who have been thinking about it might not know what those are and how they work. So, in short, this is a chance for the Bad Cop and I to chat casually with the patrons through a Google Plus Hangout on Air. If you're a patron and have the hardware to connect and join in, we have 8 spots available in the room. But any of the patrons can watch and participate in the live Q&A as well. And that works better for some who might be at work or on the road and just want to listen. These aren't just about geocaching either, or even location-based gaming. There's usually a bunch of unrelated subjects in there too. It's just a fun night of chatting with fellow GeoGearhead patrons, and one of the ways that we say thanks to those who make these shows possible. So if you are a patron, thanks again, and we hope you'll be able to join us at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, that's 6 p.m. Pacific, this Tuesday.
And Daryl, as usual, I'll be joining from the car.
Yeah, from a parking lot, I might add. I figured it's a camo tactic to make people think you're a bit off your rocker and need to be avoided.
You know, sometimes just being yourself is enough to be avoided. But, talking to yourself in the car, it doesn't hurt.
Well, it does tend to make people a little bit nervous sometimes.
Yeah.
As long as they don't call the law enforcement guys on you, you're pretty much okay.
Ooh. Sometimes I sing loudly without the radio on. Is that odd too?
Well, that's very odd, but that's much more acceptable.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I don't know what the difference is.
They'll just think you're a teenager or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, look at this face. I look like a teenager.
Exactly.
Oh, boy. But let's get to our returning guest, who were last here on episode 178 together when they talked about open caching North America. We're so glad you could join us tonight and talk about geocaching alone, on your own, by yourself. So, ladies first, welcome back, Native Texan.
Good to be back.
And then, of course, we have Dudley Grunt. So, Mr. Grunt, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Very glad to be here. And glad not to be alone. Glad Denise could join us too.
Yep.
I was thinking we have 4 people here talking about caching solo. Either we have no friends, or well, never mind. Let's talk about something else. Now, we always announce the winner of the random drawing at the beginning of each episode, and we usually give the guests of honor the opportunity to read whom was chosen. So this week, we asked something pretty easy, but with a longer and more difficult answer. So what was that, Dudley Grunt?
Well, you asked for stories or tips from the GeoGearHeads for geocaching alone. Some of those will be included in tonight's show, but there were way too many to be shared just in the one episode.
You know, there were a low number of entries this week at just 15. But those 15 would have taken somewhere around an hour and a half to read. Now, we don't have quite that much time tonight, so we'll include some of them tonight as a good overall representative of the responses. And I think Daryl selected some of them for their brevity as well. So, Native Texan, who was drawn as this week's winner of the prize from coinsandpins.com?
Okay, it was a shark who emailed, I mostly geocache solo, and I can't say I've ever done anything terribly wrong, although there was a time when I was in the middle of the woods when nature called, and I had to make use of the local environment when I was finished. What I've done, right? I tend to over-prepare. I make sure I have the right supplies for the situation. I carry at least 2 pens. I'm also not afraid to pass up a geocache if I don't feel up to it.
Well, and I think that probably brings up one of the most important things about caching alone is know your limits and don't try to push it, because that can get you into those nasty situations. And I don't mean you don't know the limits of your bio breaks C ran into, because that's kind of important as well.
Exactly.
But you don't want to get into a situation where you're going to need to have a rescue take place. And those kind of situations become much more dangerous than usual if you don't have someone there to, act as the spotter who can, make that call for you when you smash your phone and can't find it.
Yikes. That would be bad. Yeah, so, take typical precaution, let somebody know. But we'll get into more of that. Yeah. Daryl, why don't you go ahead and start with one of the first ones that we chose?
Yeah, this is, I believe, from Tavia, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. I first started caching solo because the Muggle boyfriend wasn't into it. But when I introduced geocaching to my parents and brother, they quickly caught on, and there was a summer or two when my dad, brother, and I went hiking and geocaching every other Friday. I really enjoyed that time. After I started attending events and met other cachers, I'd go out with them on longer cache runs because my father could no longer hike and my brother is busy with college. I still cache solo because I like going on my preferred time and pace. But it's definitely easier to cache with others because additional eyes help find caches faster, and, where I live, 2 or more people caching in urban areas looks less suspicious than one person snooping around in bushes and looking at their phone.
That looks suspicious no matter where you are.
Yeah, well, snooping at your phone these days, that's nothing.
It's amazing to me, on a beautiful sunny day, I see people walking around looking down at their phone. Like, stop, look up.
Stop being Ingress.
I know. I remember the times when if you saw someone walking around like that, they were probably looking at their GPS, and you thought, hey, look, another cacher. Now, like, everyone's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You've got so many people playing all of these games and whatnot to waste time while they're walking, and of course texting. But you can usually tell the difference between someone who's texting and playing a game. Though I'm not sure what geocachers look like necessarily. Maybe we need to
next time you're out. That's what they look like.
Well, and now we've got like Periscope, which makes people look even that much sillier.
I don't know. I think that's actually a good camouflage technique, to be honest with you, because if you're out taking video, you can be loud and boisterous, and people don't think a thing of it. You can go around and look and under benches, and I think that makes you actually less conspicuous.
Well, I think it makes you more conspicuous, but people are less likely to interfere because, again, it's kind of like sitting alone in the car in the parking lot talking to yourself. They're afraid of you.
Maybe I should just start periscoping from my car alone, talking to myself.
Well, you're less likely to have the cops called on you that way.
Yep.
Oh, boy. But we digress.
We tend to do that quite a bit. Yes. Dudley, you want to move on to the next piece?
Sure thing. Dune Buddy also emailed in. He said, of my 1,200 plus finds, I don't think I've ever found one with another cacher. I've made several finds with my Muggle family or friends, but none with another cacher. I actually prefer to cache alone. I enjoy the peace and solitude. I also find that if I am with friends or family, they have about 3 minutes of patience before they are ready to move on. That means I can't do a thorough search to make the find. Of course, caching alone leads to some not-so-wise decisions in interesting situations. One pre-dawn cache run on a military base in Iraq Hopefully he was in the service. Led to an MP doing the old halt, who goes there, show me some ID routine. Another time I went caching through waist-high snow in the Rockies without letting anyone know where I was, or going out alone in bear country. Fortunately, nothing happened. These events were in my younger, more foolish days. My wife has convinced me that going out without informing anyone or letting them know is not a good idea. And as we know, wives know best. Amen.
Well, and the point I think here is really that make sure people know where you are thing. Of course, you always want to tell someone where you are and when you're expected to be back, but there's a lot of good tech now if you're within range that's free or inexpensive on the smartphones. And Native Texan, you had some of those that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, just some of them that came to mind right off the top of my head. There was Glimpse, and y'all had shows on that. And Glimpse will get you down, wherever you're at. It'll follow you down a trail. And then there's also Waze, where you can share your ETA with somebody on that, but it tries to stick more to the roadways. And if you're using your Google Plus app, you can even turn on your location on that and share it with whoever you need to, and they can see where you're at all times on it. So those are a couple things there for sharing your ETA.
Yeah, and I like the Glimpse app because it does do that live real-time tracking for you. And it's it's low power if you're already using your smartphone. It just piggybacks on the usage of the GPS, so it's not taking additional power to run the GPS, because it's already on and you're caching with it, or playing Ingress or whatever. But it does run the radio a little bit more, and you do have to have that data connection to the towers. Right. So if you're in an area like a national park, for instance, that might not have the cell phone towers to give you that signal, there are some alternatives called personal locator beacons, and probably the most noted of these are the Spot messengers. It's just actually, I think, called Spot now. And it's just a little, like, hockey puck type thing that you carry around. You have to have a service plan, but it uses satellites. So it's much less likely to lose signal. Now, if you go underground, inside a building, don't plan on it working, but it does do that real-time tracking. The one that I actually like a little bit better, and we haven't used it in ages since we did the review on it early on, is the DeLorme InReach. And they've upgraded these things a whole bunch of times, and now it's pretty much a standalone device that actually allows for two-way messaging. And that's what I like about this one, is it does allow for that two-way messaging. So if you're out in the backwoods for a weekend, you can still let people know that everything is okay and get some messages in or out.
Exactly. Now, to let you know, if you're new to the show, perhaps you haven't seen our 200-plus episodes prior to this, but we do have a live Q&A. That means if you're watching us on Google+, you can go, open the Q&A app, ask us questions, make us comments, just like Limax has done. He says through the Q&A, on my last caching alone adventure, I did let people know where I was going. So, always a good thing. Let people know, just pick up the phone, call them while you're going out and say, hey, Bill, by the way, I'm going out in the middle of nowhere. If I don't come back in 3 hours, come look for me.
Well, and he also said that he's looking for a gadget that allows him to zero in on caches like a metal detector.
Doesn't work on Tupperware.
No, it doesn't work on Tupperware, but remember about 3 or 4 years ago on April 1st, the guys over at DeLorme announced the attachment, I think it was for the PN40, so it's not going to work on the current units, to detect Tupperware.
Yeah, but I never saw it in the store.
No, I don't think people were willing to actually carry it. For one, it was a bigger device. I'm wondering if maybe even the shipping was a little too cost prohibitive.
I don't know. If it had been in there for pre-order, I probably would have gotten it, because I know there's some geocaches that I've missed.
Yeah. I just want the paper detector, because I figure there's paper in almost every cache, so it's going to be good for everything. Because I don't want to have to carry around the metal detector and the Tupperware detector.
Oh.
That could get bulky.
Backpack.
Exactly.
See, and then, well, you have to take a friend with you. That defeats the whole caching solo thing. And each one of you have one of those detectors.
Yeah, and you don't know which one you need to use at any given time.
Oh boy.
Or both?
Hey, we got more email.
Oh,
This one comes from, and I've forgotten how to pronounce the name. Is it G-Nice or G-Nice?
That was nice.
I think it's nice. Well, they are nice. There's that.
Yes.
So let's go with G-Nice. He says, this is G-Nice, and a slightly edited log from September 26, 2015. So it's very recent. For cache GC4WYZX. It's really hard to say that in that order because XYZ is right in there, but they're not in the right order. That's GC4WYZX. The kitties come out at night. A cache in the Black Hills of South Dakota. I pulled up to the gate, and there was a pickup sitting there, and I thought, well, this is going to be a fun evening cache. The cache owner is here. I'd seen him at an event earlier in the day, and he's going to give me a bad time while I try to find the cache. It was dark, and at that point, a hunter comes up to the pickup with his bow and asked what I was doing, and I said I was going on a night cache. Soon there were two hunters. One of them said, do you know that there are cats up in there? There are 250 cougars living in the Black Hills of South Dakota. I said, this cache is called The Kitties Come Out at Night. And he said he wouldn't go up there unless he had a firearm on both hips. I might agree with him. Yes, I know the cache owner says don't do this alone. One of the hunters looked at me and said, are you doing it alone? I said, yes. And he says, does somebody know you are here? And I said, yes. Well, it wasn't entirely a lie. My daughter in Maryland knew where I was going to do this cache, and the CO knew as well. So, should we take a break here for a minute and say that if you're going out caching alone, maybe somebody within the immediate vicinity of where you're caching should know where you're caching, not several states away. That's half a continent away.
Well, this is one of those spots where the live tracking can come in handy as well.
Meaning you're tracked by live animals as you're doing the cache?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, I was just thinking, if there's cats up there, why not just bring, like a ball of string, a cardboard box,
And a laser
and a
pointer.
laser? Yeah. You should be able to distract them with that and get away.
Yeah, these
Give it a
cats
try.
play rough.
Yeah,
Okay.
they probably do.
Let's get back to his log. So I took off on my way into the woods, finding the fire tax. I made it through and found the cache. It was a beautiful evening. It could have been better with the moon being full, but it was a bit cloudy, and it really was a nice fall evening. I have logged another fun night cache. So there you go. I've been out in the woods and heard things that at night alone, which you shouldn't do, but it was a first to find. I'm going to go out there. It was a little bit foggy, and I had my big 3D cell flashlight with me, and in the fog I'd light that thing up and it'd look like a lightsaber I'm swinging around out there, so I couldn't be subtle. But you hear things running around that are bigger than you think little mice and squirrels should be, and you're like, maybe I shouldn't be out here right now. But
Yeah.
the lure of the cache is bigger than the fear of the critters.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those. But I love night caches, so I don't, especially being that the CO was out and about and everything, I think I might have kind of followed suit, though I definitely would have seen if I could get someone else to go with me.
Yeah.
But then, I would have used Glimpse to set up the tracking.
Yep.
We'll move on to an email from Brylang, who says, discretion is a better part of valor. I was going to tackle a trail by myself today. After hiking the first segment with friends who had to leave early, I realized the trail was a little used and overgrown in places. I decided to head back with my friends and tackle the trail another day. Again, a good situation that you have to figure out if you can and should be doing it.
Nice. Now, I do have to say, recently I went up and found the oldest geocache in the state of Washington. This was just before the APE event, which is the day after the block party. And there had to be 75 or 100 people on that mountain climbing up with me. And I got to a point where I went off, left the main group for a moment, stepped out there, and I came to a drop off, and I'm standing there looking at it, going, "Oh, this is really nice." And then I realized there's not a sound around me. There's got to be 100 people on this mountain, but I don't hear anyone at this moment. And I thought that was really odd. I mean, instantly you're like, how far away did I go from these people? So I was never lost, but there was a point there where I realized I don't see anybody. So things can happen pretty quickly when you're out in the woods.
Now, Dudley Grunt, you actually wanted to make some points about when stuff turns into a longer hike than you planned.
Yeah, that was making me think that there's definitely times where you never really know for sure. What might happen while you're out. You get another cache, maybe it gets dark, and maybe you get hurt. So your hike to the cache can always turn into something a little longer than you expected. And if you do a search online, you could find a number of lists about the 10 essentials for hiking, and then they vary a little bit. But I found one in particular from the American Hiking Society that I thought we could share. And he's Native Texan.
Okay, just top of the list, appropriate footwear. If you're going hiking, I don't suggest doing it in flip-flops.
No, I don't think. Yeah, open-toed shoes for sure aren't probably good, and boots probably best, even over just regular tennis shoes and stuff if you're going to be out in some in the woods there and different terrain.
I kind of learned that even in suburban caching, it's generally best to have actual shoes on, not just flip-flops.
Yeah.
Or sandals.
And additionally, I would recommend having a map and compass and a GPS, especially if you're going to be, it's much more than a short walk from the car. You don't want to necessarily just rely on your phone because even if you have batteries, something can happen to that. So if you have some backup items, especially the map and compass, which aren't going to require any batteries, but even if you're not primarily using the GPS, if you own one, just go ahead and throw it in your pack and take that with you too.
Yeah, and you always want to have extra water on you, whether it's carrying it in a bottle or a thermos or a camelback, or even if you're out and about, you might want to utilize one of the life straws for something for purification if you're on a really long hike somewhere.
And along with your water, you want to take some extra food and snacks. I usually pack a couple, either some kind of granola bars or something, even if it's going to be a while. I'll throw something in the bag so that I have something there in case it turns so longer or I just decide I'm getting a little hungry. And while you're out there, you're not sure, you want to bring some rain gear, extra clothing. I usually try to keep, especially if I'm planning some kind of hiking caching, trying to keep some dry socks, shoes, and stuff, at least in the car if I'm not carrying them with me. At least when I get back there, I can change and be more comfortable. Even if it doesn't rain, even if I've gotten into having to cross the stream or gotten in some water or something like that, I'll have something that I can change into when I get back.
And you want to make sure and have safety in mind when you're out on the trail. You can, if you're out and about, you can be able to start a fire if it gets late and it's cold, or if you happen to, step off the trail into some water and you need to warm up. So there's always that, and definitely a light. Make sure you've got a good flashlight. Make sure you've got good fresh batteries in it before you go out. And it would be handy to have a whistle too, because sometimes people can't hear you holler, but they can hear that piercing whistle. So if you've got kids, give them the whistle, and they'll keep the bears away.
Yeah, and the whistle also will save your voice too. Like I've always learned that if you're lost trying to get people's attention, you don't have to try to waste your voice too. You'll hear it better and be able to do it for a longer period of time. And you should try to take along some sort of first aid kit. You can get small ones pre-made. Take with you just some basics. It's also a good idea. It's never a bad idea, I should say, to get first aid trained. There are even special wilderness first aid classes that you can take, and CPR along that lines. Just being prepared. Even whether you're alone to help yourself or if you come across other people, or even if you are not caching alone, it's good to be the one who has that knowledge and can help others while you're waiting for professional assistance. Knife and multi-tool are good. Obviously, sometimes they can even help. I carry my Swiss Army knife on me all the time, especially caching, whether it's might help me open a container or do something like that, but also in an emergency situation, it's good to have something. Sunscreen and sunglasses are always good, even in the snow. You get if it's bright and you got a lot of snow, it's good to still give your eyes a little protection there. And along with all this other stuff we mentioned, of course, a good day pack or backpack to be able to carry stuff a little easier instead of just throwing in a little bag. If you'll put it on your back, not have to worry about it, it's a good idea.
Yeah, and some other items you might suggest to keep medical concerns, keep it on your mind. If you're highly allergic to ants or bees or something like that, make sure you carry an EpiPen with you. Snake bite kits. If you're in areas where there might be some poisonous snakes, you definitely might want to throw that in your backpack. They usually don't take up a lot of room. Poison ivy cream, if you're allergic to that. You can get the little packs to even put on like before you're going to be in an area with them. Another thing you might think about would be an external battery for your phone. I mean, you can get them now where the pack it'll charge a tablet, it'll charge your phone a couple, 2-3 times. So, if you're out and about, you definitely want to make sure you've got your phone, because a lot of people tend to just think, oh, I'm just going to use my phone, and you've got your GPS and you've got your radio and you've got the screen on the whole time, and it just really wears them down pretty quick. Again, we talked about water, but make sure you've got plenty of water, even in the wintertime. You may think, oh, it's not hot, but you're still getting dehydrated, so you need to make sure and keep yourself hydrated. And good hiking shoes, we already talked about that, but if you're doing something other than a park and grab, make sure you've got good shoes on. If you've got hiking shoes, make sure they're tight around your ankles so you're not slipping and twisting an ankle somewhere off by yourself and you're not able to call for help. So, and then a whistle, we talked about a whistle already, so those are just some other things. Yeah.
Well, through that wonderful vehicle of Q&A, we have more comments from Limax. He says, I basically emptied out my caching bag into my camelback on this last hike, but I forgot the compass. So it gave him everything he needed in his camelback, as well as the water portion, which is really nice. But a compass is important. And if you have a map and compass, practice with it. Don't expect, just because I have a map and compass, I know how to get out of here.
I was going to say that it's actually a good feature of a lot of the day packs now is that they do support the water bladders. Yeah. And like the Osprey is the day pack that I prefer over the Camelback. But I have Camelbacks too. I actually use the Camelbacks usually for cycling trips because they are more comfortable in cycling, and the Ospreys are more comfortable for hiking. So it's nice to have everything in the one pack, and you have that water bladder, especially on the hot days. It's much nicer to have that cold water on your back and keeps it a little bit easier to carry.
If you're going out, if you've got a water bladder in a backpack, fill it with ice on a hot day, because that will also keep you cool. The ice will melt. You'll have nice cold water as well. So, Limax goes on to say, I decided not to go after a cache at night in Vermont because I wasn't sure about local wildlife. I found one closer to the road, so I didn't have to so I could get my souvenir. So there you go. Yeah, make sure you know where you're caching.
Yeah, again, that gets back to the whole thing of, make sure you know that you're going to be safe when you're caching, because it's not worth serious injury to find a cache, is it?
No.
No.
Well, no.
No.
I had to think about it. No.
The answer is no.
Carrot Killer says the only thing he worries about when he's solo caching are snakes. For some reason, I don't worry about them at all when I'm in a group.
You make enough noise, snakes don't want to be around you.
Yeah, and the vibrations and stuff like that. A lot of snakes will react to that as well. Yeah, and in general, the rule I've always heard is when you're caching, make a lot of noise, or when you're hiking in general, make a lot of noise so that the animals know you're coming, because they'll tend to run away. So that's one of the reasons that people like to sing on the trail.
Oh, that's why I sing in my car.
Yeah, exactly. It scares away the animals. Some of them might
Yeah,
have
exactly.
bad too, but
Well,
So we'll move on to an email from 2E Tango. Being a middle-aged grandma, I rarely cache alone. I will occasionally run for a local FTF with the small GeoDog. I do have a small bottle of pepper spray and a safety whistle in the Geo bag. Always text or leave a note of where you're going, just in case.
good tips there.
Yeah, and the pepper spray is something we never mentioned before, but definitely is a good thing to have with you if you're caching solo.
Works on anything with eyes.
Exactly.
Doesn't have to be human, But that pepper spray, we didn't talk about caching solo in an urban environment. We've talked about long hikes, but caching solo, in a questionable neighborhood is just as risky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's one of the places you really need to pay the attention to the surroundings more than usual. And we've heard tons of stories over the years about caches that were placed in areas where they really shouldn't have been placed. Things like, you're finding drug needles, used drug needles all over the place, and, someone could get stuck, and it's not a situation that you want to be taking a cacher into. So again, whether it's for a solo caching trip or not, make sure that you know what the area is in which you will be caching, and as a hider, try not to hide caches in areas like that.
Yeah, it's good to be aware of your environments even there. I mean, don't we sometimes will get especially we have a bunch of caches loaded in the GPS and we're go off to the next one. Start realize where you're at and think about it and be conscious of who's around you and what's going on. So we have another email from J. Corey C. Probably a familiar story, but after a recent move, I'd gone to a state park to grab a few caches. Off I walk and grab 3 while I'm hiking the area. It was time to head back to the car, and that's when I realized I have no idea where it was. 2 hours later, and here is the tip. Always bring water when caching. Darn, I was thirsty. Oh yeah, and mark the car with your GPSR. Very good.
I always mark the car.
Yeah, that's one that I don't do as frequently as I should. But I have to admit that when I stopped doing that, well, not that I ever really started, why I never ended up really doing that is because I was using the GPS all the time, and I always left the tracks on because I liked having that reference of where I was to help me gauge distances and find the cache. So I always knew where my car was based on my tracks.
And it's also a good thing when folks have added the parking coordinates to a cache like that. And if you've used it, then you can at least get back, even if you didn't use those, you can get back to somewhere where there was good parking in the park, and then you can work from there. So check that out too, even if you did forget.
Right.
It's really good. Or, park near a cache and work in.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But, if we're all using smartphones like it's so convenient to do, those don't keep tracks. So
No.
make sure. Just this week I marked my car because I went in a hike in a lunchtime cache break, and it was one of those things that I've got to go a couple of places. I know I'm going to get myself turned around, so I marked the car.
Well, and some of the apps do actually support the tracks. CacheSense and Neon Geo on Android, if I remember, did keep the tracks, and I think that CacheSense would actually let you even export and save those, but I'd have to go back and look because it's been over a year since I even opened CacheSense, to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't played with the tracks on it.
I also have a non-caching app. I don't know if it's for on iPhone too, but it's called Agent, and it does a number of things as far as setting your phone silent, controlling calls at bedtimes and stuff. But it has a driving feature where it'll mark and remember where you parked. At least you can bring that up on the map and look. It'll just it obviously knows when you're driving because you're going faster than that, and then when you stop in your car and you've been still for a while, it'll just mark that automatically. So that can be handy too.
All right, I wasn't going to bring it up, but I do have a really, really geeky tool, and it was actually my pick on the patron site a while ago. I have the automatic, so every time I get out of my car, the phone knows where my car was parked. Well, sorry. Every time I turn off the car, it knows where the car was turned off. So if I push the car somewhere, it's not going to be able to tell me that. or if it gets towed or stolen.
So if you roll it downhill, you're out of luck.
Yeah, and I have to be within Bluetooth range because it's a Bluetooth device. But yeah, almost every smartphone, even some of the not smartphones I've seen have apps to actually mark your parking location. So almost any phone that has a GPS will have something that lets you mark your location.
Yeah, even in the Google Now has the little card there for, it'll mark your location when you stop somewhere. So I wondered, was OnStar, will they tell you where your car is if you have the app?
I think they do, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
Carrot Killer asked, what is that exactly? And I assume he's talking about the automatic. And I'll just go into it real quick. It's a geeky toy that plugs into the ODB2 port. Am I correct, Chris, in the initials there? I tend to get them screwed up sometimes.
ODB. Yeah, ODB. Yeah. I'll stop with that. Go.
Okay. And it allows for real-time transfer to your cell phone, to your smartphone, Android or iOS, and does things like telling you where you parked, but more importantly, it gives you each and every trip, your mileage, the distance, the start and stop, and all that kind of stuff, so you can label it. It's really handy if you're looking to do like logging for work, but I also kind of like it because it means I get to say, hey, this trip to the grocery store cost me 60 cents. If I walked, I would save that 60 cents. Yellow Jeeperman says that he thinks Google Now can, by default, can remember your parking location. I think he's correct. However, I want to say, and I don't know for sure, but I want to say that is dependent on the carrier and on the build of the smartphone software, because I believe some of the carriers actually have that disabled. All right, Native Texan, we've been talking about the smartphones, and our next email talks a little bit about that. One of the problems that you can run into with those, too.
Right. Giraffe015 said, always have a fully charged phone when caching a loan, and hopefully always be in range of the phone, too. So, yeah, you want to make sure and hang on to it and be in data range.
Yeah, and that gets into your external battery packs. Always a nice, smart thing to be carrying with you. Mm-hmm. And you can get a number of these packs now that have the flashlight built in, so they can serve double duty. You have a nice rechargeable flashlight. Some of them are, just an LED. Others are actually like real flashlights. And I've seen flashlights now that even have a USB power port. So all kinds of cool options for that. And I love the idea of having those flashlights that don't take batteries.
Those are cool.
Oh, Team Pugach also emailed in with something that I actually have done and didn't think about prior to the show. He said his best tip for caching solo is to photograph the trail map at the parking lot with your smartphone before venturing out. So if you didn't bring a map, or you don't have it, or they don't have the paper ones to pick up, you can always pull that up and refer. And I've definitely done that.
I do that all the time myself. And okay, here's my dream feature request. I want a geocaching app that will let me take that photo and line up certain reference points and then use that map to actually navigate by.
Oh, yes.
So that map would replace the actual like satellite or Google or Street Map or whatever, but you do have to have some way to line that up. So I have the feeling I'm never going to see it because, who wants to put in all that time and effort to build something like that when you can do other more productive things? But I really, really want that ability.
Also look in your app store for local trail guides. There's several here for the state of Washington that I can actually download those trail maps and navigate with them. So
absolutely,
there are options.
Well, and if you have some of the apps, or if you have the GPS, you can download things like the trail maps. We talked with a couple of the people responsible for collecting those crowdsourced trail maps, and you can load those onto your phones. It might not be as good as having the trail map that's recently updated, but at the same time, you'll have some bonus trails on there that might not be on the others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't tell you the number of times I've walked or started thinking, well, it's only 200 feet that way. If I start bushwhacking, I'm sure I can get to it. To realize that you have to go past it and come back on another trail.
Yep.
Don't bushwhack. You don't need to.
Yeah, I use CGO a lot, and I like the fact that they have, in addition to the satellite and just the Google, they have the OpenStreetMaps stuff in there that will be better for actual trails too. So I'll pull those up a lot of times to double check that.
Nice. Well, Native Texan, we've got one more. Would you do the honors of reading it?
Sure. J6 Family says, my solo tip, bring a camera to take those selfies. Sometimes people won't believe you unless you have photos. So,
I'm
you can
thinking
take a picture and
Periscope.
didn't exactly get away.
Yeah. I'm thinking Periscope might be another good solution for J6 Family.
Yeah,
It depends
that would work.
if you have data.
This is
take
true.
a selfie without data.
This
Yep.
is very true. All right, we do have one last comment in the live Q&A from Limax. I downloaded OpenStreetMaps to my GPS, which gave me better trail coverage. Although I keep thinking the topo lines were trails.
There's a lot of circular trails.
Well, that depends. Around here we have a lot of like serpenting topo lines. Oh boy, we got a bunch of other ones in here. Okay, we have Carrot Killer. Anyone interested? I will be at Going Caching 2015 next week. I will be doing live periscopes from the Mega Wednesday through Sunday. Feel free to follow me at EDEMSHAR on Twitter and Periscope. That could be a lot of fun. Not really pertinent to our solo caching, but our last comment from Limax is, I talked myself out of geocaching after one cache in Idaho because I wasn't sure about the bear population.
One bear is too much. If
Yeah.
you're out caching.
Unless it's a little one.
You can't bear the bears?
No. Well, what if the bears are bear?
Well, it depends. Is it a bear or is it a bear?
Oh,
Oh.
the bear.
The bear. Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, with that I think we better wrap it up because we're getting a little too silly.
You think? Well, let me
Thanks
pull us
again,
back into reality here for just a quick moment and say, first of all, thank you to our guests. You guys, you're great every show, so maybe we should have you on more often. Remember, the biggest thing when you're caching solo is let somebody else know where you are. I don't care if you do that electronically, by a phone call, text message, whatever. Let somebody know where you are.
Well, I would probably argue that it might actually be more important that you know your limits and don't push it when you go out caching solo.
Can we agree to disagree?
Two good tips.
Yes.
Yes. Very good.
Yes. I think this is one where we'll have to just call it a tie, and they're both best tips. How's that sound?
Not a problem.
Yes. Stay safe.
Well, at the beginning... Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I just said stay safe. And as far as letting somebody know where you're at, let them know when you're expected to be back. If you're going out on a quick park and grab and it's 2 hours, but if you're on a regular trail and, let me know in about 5 hours, you kind of give them a time frame as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if you are going to surpass that time frame, make sure that they know because you don't want emergency services out looking for you at the same time.
Yes.
But I just could get one more cache. It wouldn't...
But there's always one more cache. This is why you have to have that live tracking so they know you're still moving and, that silly guy who just keeps one more caching until it's, tomorrow morning.
Yep, exactly. Hey, you met me. No. So, at the beginning of the show, we told you who won the prize for last week's question. Guess what? We have another question for this week. So, pop open your web browser. It's time to do a little research for question 198. Email us at geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com with the right answer along with your geocaching.com screen name, and you'll be entered into the drawing for a prize from project-gc.com. With all the news recently about the European Union's positioning system, and we'll talk some more about that in next week's show, we thought a question about that system was a good idea. So, email us with which nation is credited with designing the rockets that carried the Galileo 9 and 10 satellites into orbit with your geocaching.com screen name in the body. Title that email question 198 and have it to us at GeoGearHeads at cacheamaniacs.com by October 14th at 6 p.m. Pacific, that's 9 p.m. Eastern, October 15th. October 14th. October 15th, you can do that if you get it into us by 1 a.m. UTC. Get it right. Apparently, I said something that Siri over here thought should pop up. If you get it right and we receive that by Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, you'll have a chance to win that membership to project-gc.com, which is a cool site. I have been on it a lot in the last month.
Awesome. It is cool. And, of course, we have 3 shows that talk nothing but Project GC, so you can go back and find out a lot more about that. And we know how confusing time zones can be. So if you want to know what the upcoming schedule is and what it is in your time zone, we have some cool links on the upcoming show page. So if you head over to geogearheads.com/upcoming, or just head to geogearheads.com and click on the upcoming link, you can see all of our upcoming shows for the next 5 to 6 weeks, and click on the link to find out what time those are going to be live in your time zone, and click on a different link to take you to the show page, and then you can watch live or make your notes, ask live Q&A comments, all that kind of stuff. So let's go over the next 5 because, well, next week is going to be really exciting. We're going to have randomized 38 randomized shows. And that one is going to have a whole bunch of talk about the Galileo system, as we just talked about. But send us all of your comments and questions, anything that you found that you think we should talk about on the show, because we'll have the GOC doc on to talk with us about all of those topics. And, of course, we have the patron show right after that. So patrons, look for that bonus show and even join us live right after the regular show. Then on October 22nd, we're going to be talking about picking your next GPSR. October 29th, which is show 200, is going to be another road caching show, this time with Scott Burks and Shorty Knits. That's actually the last one before Halloween, so there might be some tricks up the sleeve. Yeah, maybe you don't want to watch that one, actually. Then November 5th is 201. We're going to be talking about intercaching again. I'm anxious to get the update from Chilihead on what's new in intercaching, which is that cool web-based alternative to Where I Go, and also has this new mob cache feature, which some of you might have heard of. Finally, November 12th is going to be our next randomized show after next week's randomized show. So make sure to join us for all of these great shows and get your comments, questions, feedback, anything you want to us before any of those shows hit so that we can get them in. And, of course, you can always use the live Q&A.
We love the live Q&A, but remember to check the Cacheamaniacs website at cacheamaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes from this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads at cacheamaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cacheamaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron by clicking on the link on our website to support the Cacheamaniac shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show's copyright 2015 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.